Hello. And intro to most of my instructional videos here is going to be just some basic things to keep in mind. One, I record and I record my videos and post them to YouTube so you can use closed captioning. I know I tend to talk a little fast, so hopefully this will help. You can see down at the bottom of the screen here what you can see in English what I'm saying. The other thing you can do with closed captioning is if you want to see it in another language, let's say you can read Ukrainian or you can read Spanish or Filipino. Oftentimes YouTube will allow you to do closed captioning in another language, so that can be helpful there. That's a resource there. The other thing as you're watching these is pause. Don't be afraid to pause the video. Write down what you're doing or write down your question and then restart it again. That's something that's a little bit different than in class because I know I do tend to talk fast. All right, as you're watching these videos, I want you to break it into 3 parts. Part number 1 is to watch that video all the way through, get an idea of where you're going. What are the expectations? What is it you're going to be doing? If possible, what's the end product? What's the end result you're putting there? What is it you need to have done? Second is to put together a notes, and that's where you're taking these on paper and pencil. I know a lot of you like to take notes digitally or want to take notes digitally. It's not the same. I really encourage you do it as your handwriting. It helps with making that connection between the brain and what's going on. And as you're taking notes, take notes on things instructions that I give you. Write out those instructions. If I give you hints or tips, write those down. If there's important measurement information or details, write those down. Also, questions, write down your questions. Words you don't understand, directions that don't make sense, things I don't demonstrate. Those are great. Write those off I would encourage you, write those off to the side in the margin. And then the next step, third time you watch the video, is go back, watch for things, do I answer the questions you have? Look for the answers to those questions. Because any questions that are left afterwards, that's when you can email me at my email address that hopefully will pop up here if I do it right. Or you can save them for when we're in class. All right, so hopefully these tips and instructions are going to be helpful, and I look forward to helping and supporting you. So let's go ahead and get started. And as I always say, let's go forth and do some great things. Hey, welcome back. Week 2 of our 3D design Tinkercad, and I'm just looking over my notes here. I know I've had a couple questions of, do we have to take notes? Do we have to take notes? Or do we need to take notes? And my recommendation is yes. I'm going to tell you, you've got to be taking those notes. Makes a great connection between pen and pencil and mind when you actually take the time to write things down. And it's good to be doing that actively and not just typing it out sometimes. The main reason I do typed notes is if I'm going to be showing them later on so that you can see them. But there is research and science that says writing something down helps you remember it better. So the answer to that question is yes, you need to take notes. A couple of things that I want to review from the last lesson, and I'm just going to go into create a new design here, is I love seeing your keychains and your key rings, the things that you were pulling out there. Had some great ones that, with the raised letters and the ones that were that little tray that you were putting letters on. Really had some creative designs and some great designs that were coming in there. So what I want to review is just, again, you can take a shape from here and drag it in there. And you can right click using the right mouse button, and you can rotate and hold it down and rotate the plane, your workspace. You can come back here and go back to the home, and you can also quickly go to different planes here. All right, just a couple things that came up. One, resizing your shape. These white boxes are used for reshaping or resizing and kind of doing it to scale. So if you use a white box, you can go and it will adjust, it'll allow you to adjust the length and width, or the width and length of the object at the same time. Whereas the black boxes will just allow you to do what that side is. So here I'm adjusting the height, here I'm adjusting only the width. So that, hopefully that'll help some of you. This white box here in the center is for adjusting the height. There is some confusion between the black kind of cone or triangle here. This is lifting the shape off of the plane. This is adjusting the height. Okay. A couple of things that we're going to get into for this lesson are, as a review, are these tools here. This is your shape rotator, and you'll notice there's two sets of lines or rotations you can do. You can do, if I click on that again, you can do the gross movement, which is the inner circle. This will rotate it kind of to those big ticks there, big lines there, and it's really easy to get it to like 22, 45, 67, and 90. This outer rung here this is more of, shape here. This is more of, if you rotate, if you get up here, this is, and I'm holding the left mouse button down to rotate these. This is more of your 1 degree at a time measurements here. So there you can, now allows you a little bit more fine control. Gross control, fine control. All right. The other thing that, there's a couple of things that I noticed along with that is, if you see like this here, this is below your work plane. There's nothing wrong with that. If we were to go to print these out, I'd have to adjust it to get that above the plane because we can't print out below the plane. But really, right there's nothing wrong with that. All right, so we talked about adjusting the size of shapes using the white handles and the black handles, and adjusting the height of the plane off the plane, and the height of the shape itself. Okay, so the other thing I want to get into with you on this is, I'm going to bring this back to 0 here, and I'm going to drop it down onto the plane, is sharing. There's a lot of confusion. A lot of you wanted to highlight this address up here and give me that. The problem with that is, this is the address that allows you into your account. It's actually your own account, your own workspace. I can't get into that. What I need you to do is right over here where it says invite people, this little circle with a half circle and a plus. Invite people to design with you. This is one where you click on that, generate that link, and copy that link. This gives me 336 hours, basically a week to 2 weeks, to collaborate with you. This is what I want, this link here. So let me demonstrate that for you. I'm going to go into my incognito mode, and I'm going to paste that here. That will allow me to go in. Now I'll sign in using my teacher account here, and that allows me to go in and work on this with you and kind of see it and give you, this way I can make little fine-tuning adjustments to it if need be. Now you'll notice it is taking some time to load. There are a lot of people out there. I know of at least 2 other teachers that are using this, not necessarily in Fife, but out in the world. So if you're experiencing some loading difficulties, it's okay. All right. So that's the sharing mode. The other one you can do is the send to, and some of you have been doing the send to, the picture design. I don't want that. You can come down here and do invite people. Really though, it's this one that my mouse cursor is on that I'm highlighting. That's the link that I want you to send to me. Okay, so I'm gonna go back into incognito mode and turn that off. So that's basically the review: adjusting shapes, moving things around, changing size, redoing some things. In the next part, I want to talk about the use of holes and how you're going to be using those for the 2 lessons that you're going to be working on this week. All right, so give me a second to get my holes set up and we'll go. All right, part 2, we're talking about holes. Each shape can be a solid or a hole. Now you'll notice at the top here, you've got a box and a cylinder hole at the top. But really, let's say I want to work with this polygon here. And as I'm looking at it, I think I want to make it kind of go up. And I want to make 2, kind of make it like a octagon or whatever, high, stoplight. So I'm going to rotate this around, and you'll see that I've got this. Now I could put it in like that and do my Control D to duplicate and bring it, do my Control D, duplicate, and there I've got my little stoplight. But really I want those to be holes, because let's say I'm going to print this piece out and have my and put in some lights, have some lights that I'm going to put in there. So I want these to be like this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to align things down the center so I have them nice and aligned. And it looks like I got a good spacing there. Oh, you know what? That one could go up a little bit more. So I'm going to select just those two and align that. I don't really like that, so I'll just move it on my own. So I'm not going to spend too much time doing that there, but there we go. Okay. A little bit, maybe. That's what happens when you have a teacher that's a perfectionist. Okay, so now I'm just going to align those again and make sure everything's all nice and neat down the center. Bam. Okay, so again, I'm going to make some holes. I can change these octagons or hexagons, excuse me, into holes by just clicking on them and clicking the hole piece, or the hole tool mode. All right, so there I've got some holes. I'm going to actually adjust the height of these a little bit here. Oh, Control Z to undo. And I'm going to drop them down below plane, and I'll show you why I'm doing that here in a second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each shape, I'm going to group them together, and as I rotate it around, you can see now I've created some holes in this simple rubric, in this simple rectangle. Okay, that's the power of holes. Is they will eat space up. They're actually a shape that is taking up space in your object here, but when you group them, that's when they have the cutouts. Now this is really cool. So let's say we want to give this I'm going to adjust this brick here, and I'm going to turn it around and maybe do some rotation like so. And let's see here, maybe like so, like there. And what I'm looking for is just, I want to do a simple little cutout. So let's say I want to do like that, but I'm going to bring it up, and then I'm going to bring it out a little bit and rotate it around. And just grow it a little bit more, make sure everything's there like that. Okay, and I'm not going to take too much more of your time, but I'm going to increase that and bring it down a little bit so it cuts up. So what I'm really trying to do is to put a corner on this piece, and if I turn it into a hole, and there I go like so, and group it, there we go. Now I've got a nice little shaved off piece. Now I could work more on that and get it the way I want it, but I just really want you to see that. So that's the other power of holes, is you can give yourself what's called a chamfer, things like that. So, but today we're just going to, in the next couple of lessons, we're just going to make a die, a 6-sided die, and a wrench, an open-end, box-end wrench that uses holes to create the wrench and the die. So that's power of holes. I'm going to jump into the next 2 lessons here in the next 2 parts. Okay, welcome back. So here I've got my demo piece here. I'm going to go back to my gallery here. Let's see here. Most of you know that if you click over there, it's saving my work. Okay. And the first thing we're going to jump into is a lesson under the Learn tab. And we're going to go to lessons here, see all lessons. Let's see if I can find it really quickly. Here it is right here, creating holes. Okay, and this is one where again, it's going to walk you through, and I'm actually going to walk through making this with you because it is kind of complex. But you can see here we have a box end wrench, and we're going to jump in and make it the crescent end of that. Open end box end wrench is what it's got. Okay, so we're going to start, we're going to hit next, and now in here they're saying you're going to take the blue polygon and you're going to drag that out and match it up to the piece there. Okay, you got that, and kind of read. What they're going to do is they're going to have you change that polygon into a hole, and next. All right, and then from there, now I know some of you may have done this lesson already. That's okay. Now that we have both our shapes, you need to jump. You need to group them together. So select the object by pressing the hold shift button and click. And now we're going to group them together here and group. And you can see there's the hole, there's the wrench, and next. There we go. Now you've created a simple open end box end wrench. The one thing that I would say with this though is you might want to offset that a little bit more, bring it in a little bit, totally up to you. But there you've got your wrench. We could actually print that out and you'd have a perfect wrench. I don't know what size it would be. We'd have to measure in between there. In the next lesson, we're going to get a little more complex, and we're actually going to use the die piece here to create some dies. Some of you have already done this already. If you want to get more complex, you can use the isodecahedron, or you could use the polygon, the pyramid, the wedge, the roof, which is the same as the wedge, to make some other dies as well. So we'll get into the die piece here in a second. All right, welcome to the last part. Okay, I'm actually going to go back to my gallery, and this is actually an Instructables lesson that I have done in the past. I'm going to just go through it on my own and kind of go step by step. So for the die, we're going to start with just a very simple 6-sided die, and you notice I got the die. You could also do the box as well if you want. Totally up to you. I'm going to stick with the die, and I'm going to end up, you don't have to at this point. You're going to see that your die is about 16 by 16 millimeters square. This is about 1.5 centimeters, about 1.6 centimeters square or cubed. I'm going to actually do this as I'm going to make this 2 centimeter, oh, not 2 millimeters. Let's go 20. I'm going to make this a 2 millimeters cubed die here. So let me just get some adjustments in there. Okay. Just because I want one that's a little bit bigger, and it makes it a little bit easier to work with. All right, so I've got my 6 sides here, and you're going to want to get practice. You're going to get some practice in using. We'll get our numbers. We'll scroll over to our numbers here. There's our numbers. You're going to get some practice using the rotating your plane, the alignment tools, using holes, and the rotating your object. All right, so first off, I'm going to start with the number 1. Okay, pretty easy. However, first step is to lift it up and then bring it over and then drop it down. And there we go. So I've got it in there. That's kind of a couple steps there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight both. I'm going to align it, and I'm going to align it so that both objects are centered. Okay, and it's centering it down the center of the object. There's the center of the one there, not that part. Okay, so you've got equal space between this edge and that edge, and you know what? Maybe I will align that in the middle there as well. So there we go. Now I've got a good alignment there and a good alignment there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that number 1 and I'm going to turn it into a hole. And I can see there. Now you see I've got it sunk down in. If you're concerned, you can increase the height, but I'm going to put the one. Now you can see there's my 1 inserted down inside there. I've got a little hole in there. All right. Now, the next one, and I don't really care what sides you do these on, but it's important that you group them after each number. Don't try to do it all at once. All right, so the number two. Number two I'm going to put right here. This is where things start to get where you want to take your time. Is I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to go, and you notice I'm moving my work plane around quite a bit. I'm going to rotate this up 90 degrees. And I'm going to use the gross motor, and I'm going to go there. There. Now, I'm going to lift it up and drag it over. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to adjust that in just a little bit. And it looks good. And then I'm going to align some things here. Again, align center, and even just for oop, no, don't want that one. Let's undo that one. I don't want to line it. I don't want the two in the center of the cube there. All right. Now, I'm going to warn you about one thing. If you make your letters too big, if you adjust the size of your numbers, you could start, or you go too deep, you're going to start cutting into, you'll see some see-through here between these two when you group them. Let's see how I did on that here. So I'm just going to group those. And, oh, you know what? I forgot to make that a hole. Rookie mistake. Noob. Okay, now let's group it in there. All right, so now I'm going to rotate around and see. Okay. Kind of zoom in there a little bit. No, looks good. Come down over here, looks good. All right, so I've got my two. All right, I'm going to rotate around, and I'm going to put my 3 on the other side here. So I'm going to pull my 3 out, and I'm actually going to, let's see here. So I want to make sure my 3 is going the right way. So I'm going to come back to home here. I'm going to zoom in, and let's see here. So okay, so I'm going to end up rotating this. I'm going to rotate this way, 180 degrees, and then I'm going to rotate it around this way, and I'm going to rotate it up 90, just like I did before. Anybody want to take a guess as to why I rotated it like that? Okay, if I put it on there the other way, it wouldn't be a 3. All right, bring it up in the air. Rotate it around, bring it over, looking good, and then I'm going to sink it in there. Turn it into a hole so I don't forget. Highlight and align. And group. All right, so there I've got my first 3 sides. I'm going to do these other 2. I'm going to speed things up a little bit, and then I'm going to show, so that you're not watching me do the whole thing, and then I'll show you the trick to doing the bottom. Okay, so in just a second you'll see the video speed up as I put on the 4 and the 5. Okay, so I sped up a little bit there just to make, so you don't have to get too bored there. So you see I got my 5 sides there. I've checked to see if there's any overlap between the holes, and it doesn't appear to be. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to home, and I'm going to end up rotating this die 180 degrees so that the bottom is now the top. Now this is where it's going to get a little tricky, is I want that number 6 to align up so that if it hold, and you'll notice I turned my workspace around because I want that number 6 to show up as a 6, so that if it gets up there, now I'm gonna have to rotate that 6 around and rotate it back up. So that's kind of the trick, is to, oops, I'm gonna leave that as, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit here. Whoops. That's kind of the trick, is to make sure that you're thinking about this. And actually what I like to do is I actually wrote out my numbers as if I'm viewing it, just so that I could get a good idea of making sure that I'm doing it right. All right, let me group some things here, or not group, just align some things here, and then group. And there we go. There is my die. Looks good. And you know what? Maybe I'll just rotate that back around, and there we go. You know, got it the way I want. All right. So, like I said, some of the things to watch out for is I'm going to end up ungrouping this too, to show you that. Some things to watch out for. Ungroup that. If I was to take the, didn't ungroup the 2. Okay, let's see if I can ungroup. Where did it? Oh, ungroup the 5. Okay, that's, oh, ungroup the 5 and the 6. That's okay. All right, so I'm gonna push that 5. Still got. I'm gonna click on the 5. I'm gonna push that 5 in. Just, I'm gonna bring it actually. Let's see if I can bring it up. No, that didn't do what I wanted to do. I'm going to actually raise it up a little bit and push it in and see. I'm going to make it thicker. That's what I got to do. Pull a little bit wider here. So, let's see. I think that will hopefully, there we go. That'll accomplish it. So now, if I've got my 5 in there and I go and group that, okay, from this angle, well, you can see there's that gap. And there's that gap there, okay? That's gonna, if we were to print these out, that's gonna create a problem. So I kind of make sure you're rotating around and looking for that. A lot of times when that happens, that's, your numbers are too big, you didn't align, or your numbers are too big or too wide or too deep, and or you did align. It's gonna be very important that you align your numbers. And you notice I tried really hard not to change the depth of the number here, and I'm going to go back and undo, and let's see here, I think we're good. So I'm going to go back and regroup those. So that's one of the more common mistakes that people make, is they make their numbers, they go too deep, or they make them too deep. That's making a 6-sided die. This would print out very nicely. I know if you leave it at the normal die size, it is a little bit small, and it makes it hard to pull out some of the support materials, but we can work with that. If you want a challenge, if you're looking to go a little bit more than, or a little bit more, you don't want a 6-sided die, you could go at looking at making a number or a letter generator, random letter generator. You could, like I said before, you could use a box, you could use the roof or the wedge to get a, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided die. You could get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided die out of a pyramid. Here you got your hexagon or your polygon, where you can, yeah, you can't, I wonder if we were to, oh, no, I thought that would, oh, sides. You can adjust the sides on this and make it a number, and then drop it down. So that's another way you can do that. Or one that's really tough is the isodecahedron. Now this one, you can't adjust the number of sides on this, but this one would challenge you to get your numbers the right size. I would start by resizing it to a bigger size. That would be where I would start. Like right now you're looking at about a 1.7 centimeter by 1.6 centimeter. I would make it at the very least, I would go 20, just like I did with 20 and what is this, 19, yeah, 20. I would make it at least a 20 by a 2 centimeter by 2 centimeter by 2 centimeter volume, or length, width, and height there. If not a little bit bigger, and then you could always shrink it down to the size you want. That'll make it easier to work with the numbers. So again, this would be a nice little challenge for you if you'd like to do that. Okay, so that's you making a die using holes. What I'm going to be looking for is this and the wrench, that you've got those done. All right, as always, go forth and do great things.